Welcome back, friends. I am here and I have a guest today. We're going to be talking about his experience with the David E. Taylor Ministry. And at this point, we're not really calling it a ministry or a church, it's definitely a criminal organization. And that was what my friend Jeff shared this morning when we were talking before we started recording. And it is true. If you guys have been following me or many other people who have been talking about David Taylor, you know he's been indicted, federally indicted. He has 10 counts against him, and his co defendant, Michelle Brandon, she has 8. So I'm going to bring him on in a minute. But as you know, if you've been watching me, other podcasters, there's a lot that we talk about. And one of the topics we talk about is the fact that other leaders in Christian ministry, they claim to be Christians, right? They're not coming out and speaking. And I've talked about this recently in regard to Jeremiah Johnson, because he did certainly give the impression as though he understood why podcasters were coming out. But on the other side of his mouth, he called us unhinged and likened us to Absalom, who, as you know, unalived his brother. So I want to share something from a viewer who has become a friend. Months ago, he reached out with a very encouraging email to me at a time when I was asking the Lord about something. So it was very encouraging. And then he shared this with me recently. And it was in regard to that revelation I got. If you watched my video about Jeremiah Johnson, and I was watching a video by Drew Bloom and just asking the Lord, why aren't these leaders who claim to be Christian, why aren't they coming out and exposing or at least addressing the fact that these other leaders are doing things that should be uncovered and they're immoral and perhaps they shouldn't be preaching? And so in that vein, my friend Steve Holgram, so he was kind enough to send me this text, and he said that they are not worthy. Scripture states only God and Jesus are worthy, Revelation 4 and 5. Man is not. And he referred to Jesus's parable of the Pharisee and sinner going to the temple to pray in Luke 18. He also said, expect that most Christian leaders will not call out sin. And examples are from the Bible. Remember Sodom, the city of thousands. God could not even find 10 righteous. The Sanhedrin, 71 members, and not one defended Jesus. The parable of 5 virgins and only 5 acted rightly. The parable of 10 lepers, only one did as Jesus instructed. The 7 churches in Revelation, only 2 received no criticism. And Steve's conclusion was that most of today's churches, and in fact Christians, don't know the scriptures and they don't know God. And perhaps that is what we're seeing. And I shared this in my video yesterday. I think that it's more than, obviously that is the fundamental foundation that you know scripture, but you also need to act on it if you see people that claim to be leaders and claim to be Christians not abiding by scripture. So here we are today. I'm going to bring in my guest, Jeff, and he is going to talk with us about the David E. Taylor Ministry. Oh, criminal organization, I should say. Good morning, Jeff. How are you doing?
Oh, good morning, Vanessa. Thank you for having me on. I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan,
Thank
like I told you
you.
before. I've been following you, especially since the David E. Taylor debacle happened, and I just want to commend you on what you've done so far. I think your show has a lot of integrity, but on top of that, a lot of knowledge, and I appreciate that, especially from the law side. So, thank you for having me on. I'm really excited to be
Thank
here
you
with
so
you.
much. That's so sweet. And I am so excited to have you on. We spoke last week, and we were set up by our mutual friend, Uncle Jake,
Uncle
right?
Jake, he's
Yes, it was.
famous.
Yes, he's incredible. And so Uncle Jake shared your video and you and I talked about it. And it is a video that went viral about 6 years ago. And so, first off, before we get into that, just share a little bit about you as much as you want. You don't have to share exactly, your location, things like that. But you are wearing a Detroit Lions
Well,
shirt.
yeah, and that was on purpose too.
Yeah,
So, my name's Jeff. I'm a happily married man. I'm a father of three beautiful children. Um, Obviously, I love the Detroit Lions. I like to call myself a civil rights activist. And you've had on your show the past few episodes, you've had some heavy hitters as far as ministry is concerned and pastors. And I have been tuning in. So breaking the action, I am not a pastor. um, and I don't consider myself. And here's the thing: I don't consider myself a religious person, but I am a faith based person, and I'm a spiritual person too. I do believe in God, and that His Son saved us all.
yeah,
Um, but what I also believe is that over these several years, we've been seeing a change in the church and what the message is and what God's message is. And I just, I'm so glad that you have this platform that you brought me on so I can, discuss that and share some of the thoughts that I have, about what's going on in our churches today or our criminal organizations.
that's right. That's right. And so, even before we get to that, before you started noticing or, that David Taylor's organization was highlighted to you, were you seeing things in the church that were upsetting or unsettling?
Yes. Oh, here we go. We're getting into it.
We're getting into it.
Yeah, I mean, there's some things. I grew up in the church. I was a musician um, at a predominantly black church in Detroit, very large church in Detroit, um, where faith was taught, how to love God was taught, how to recognize a true God, and how to recognize true worship. And so knowing that and being a musician, I was, just enthralled in God's presence. So I understand what it means to be in God's presence. I know what it feels like. And I think over the years, the church has gotten away from what his presence is, and they focused so much on prosperity, prosperity in particular with money. um, and you see these videos and um, you just get really depressed that the spirit of God is no longer prevalent in the church, and it just hurts. It just hurts really
Yeah.
bad. And so yeah, I had been seeing it, and then of course I can jump onto YouTube and see different things, and um, that's when I came across Joshua Media Ministries International. And I tell you what, I've seen some pretty bad things that come out of pastors' mouths and bishops, ministers, teachers, elders, apostles. Nothing like when I came across David E. Taylor. I mean, it is nothing like I've ever seen before.
Yeah. And for those that are watching, they probably know, but just to give us a little snippet, what stood out to you, if you can recall back then that you noticed that was just striking?
I think the focus was not on God. They had the image that they were worshiping God. They had the actions that they were worshiping God. But what you actually saw and what you actually felt was a worship of David E. Taylor and his title as apostle, his title as a general, his title. He even called himself the Pope at one time because he is the only man in this world who has all the power. And I think the thing that just set it all off is a couple things. First, he would call himself Jesus's best friend, which I've never heard that before.
Right.
Never. a single man on this earth. Yes, he's a child of God, but to call himself, Jesus's best friend, words mean something nowadays. And for him to say that, just, it kind of intrigued me. But him, continuously saying that he is the only one and he has all power on this earth, and God trusts only him and his word. It was just very disturbing. So obviously it made me look deeper into his organization, made me look deeper into his people, and I once I started doing that, I could see that something was off here. Something was just, the waters were kind of muddy, where there was still talk of God, but the reverence and everything else was about David E. Taylor, and
Right.
it just really, really disturbed me.
Yeah, you summed that up really well. And that is key because when we see these people that claim to be Christian leaders elevating themselves and comparing themselves, placing them up high and saying, this is me and this is what God has said about me. God talks to me all the time. You hear that all the time. I mean, I cover that
Yeah,
all the time. It's separating yourself from children of God because we all are children of God, right?
right.
He's not a respecter of persons. So when when somebody is doing that, that's a huge red flag right then and there. And,
Absolutely,
and
absolutely,
making
and
people
yeah,
call him apostle. Don't call me
yeah,
David. It's
yeah.
apostle.
Don't call me David. Yeah, and the thing about his followers, I guess you can call them that now. Um, I think the more popular word that we're using for them now is victims or unaware victims. Um, they are full fledged. I mean, all the way in, and I think they're going to ride this thing out until it's over, whenever that is. And that's the scary part about it, Vanessa, is that the mind manipulation that has gone on in this building is, I don't think we've ever seen that probably since Jim Jones or like David Koresh.
Right.
And it's that serious. And that's why I think what you're doing on this platform right now is bringing awareness and attention to it for people that don't know about it.
And you have a platform too. And I know you have that one video, which by the way, to my viewers, I will be linking it so you can see it. I mean, it has almost 100,000 views on
Had
that.
no idea. I had no had no idea it was gonna explode like that. My original intention. I'm a big First Amendment person. I believe in the First Amendment, the five elements of the First Amendment. Um, and my goal that day was twofold. It was to, yes, because I was so close to this church. I was, 30, 40 minutes away. I wanted to see it for myself. And then I wanted to, test my First Amendment, the freedom of the press, um, in front of the church. And what it turned into, when your viewers see the video, I mean, it was incredible. It was incredible. Did I
Yeah, we're going to
feel?
talk about that.
Yeah, we'll talk about it. We'll talk about it.
Yeah, we're going to talk. I'm going to set the stage now. Obviously, you're in the Detroit metro area. You and I talked. I used to live there too. I lived downriver, which about, I'd say, maybe 10 miles from Taylor, I think, Brownstown Township. Are you familiar with
Okay.
that?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So I actually worked in Taylor at the police department when I first became a prosecutor up there. So I was there, I think maybe a year or two. I was a community prosecutor for domestic violence. So that police department, that's on Goddard Road, right?
Mhm.
I think
Mhm.
it is. Yeah. You've got Telegraph and then Goddard Road and then Superior Road. Is
Right.
that a little bit more south?
Yeah.
That's where
Yep.
Taylor's ministry
Yep.
is, right?
Yep.
Superior Road.
Exactly.
I recall that. I don't recall that building, but I know that area. And so, what you went to that church and you filmed, or
Yeah.
to that
I
building, I should say, and filmed.
Yeah, just my intention was, just to go out there, narrate my video just a little bit, so people can see, because this was shortly after the deposition in 2014 and 2015 that it
Right.
came out, which sparked a lot of controversy um, in the Christian church once they saw this, because uh, That if you haven't seen that deposition, I encourage you to watch it. If you're intrigued by someone who's able to consistently lie and believe their own lies for about 4 hours straight, it's incredible. So it intrigued me to just take a visit down there. Um, I was I expecting what happened to happen? No, I wasn't. Um, my main goal was just to make sure my rights were protected and just to get some footage of this organization that was all over social media.
Yeah.
And so when that happened, I mean, it just, it from the very, I was only there maybe 2 minutes, less than 2 minutes. And then and then the whole video kicks off. I was approached by some people and it went from there.
Now, when you were videotaping, and like you said, you're there for about 2 minutes, and you see people come out, did you know who those people were at
I
that time?
knew, I knew faces just from seeing them on some of David E. Taylor's broadcasts, some of his videos. I'd seen the faces before, but and I knew some names. Um, but if you remember in the video, the very first person that I remember clearly was Joseph Bush. He came
Yes.
out on the video and was asking questions. And then he went back inside. And then you saw one of David E. Taylor's I said Paul Bearers, pretty
Armor
soon.
bearer.
Man.
Yep.
Armor bearers.
Yep.
Um, Daniel, who approached me, and he was, from the get, you can feel the aggression with
Oh, yeah.
him. You can feel the uncomfort that I was there simply on the sidewalk taking the video.
And he
Uh,
was the one that was asking you specifically what you're doing and don't you want information and asking
yeah,
you about your video.
yeah, yeah. He was
Okay.
asking, how are you making a video and you don't have any information? I said, I have as much information as I need.
That's
I
right.
got plenty. And then he even invited me. Well, so why don't you come in and you come to the church? I said, ew, no, 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 no.
No.
Never ever will I step foot
Right.
in this place ever.
Right. And
Yeah,
just to
and
clarify,
then
you were on the sidewalk.
on the sidewalk the entire time, never step foot on their property
Right.
whatsoever. Yeah, and it escalated from there. A couple more people came out. There was a guy named, I think his name was Chris, not the Chris that you had on your show. I think it was a different Chris that was there.
The Christopher on my show never actually worked at any of these
Yeah,
buildings. Yeah. They had
yeah,
asked him to go work at the one in Houston, but he did not. So,
yeah. This was a different Chris.
yeah.
And it's what's funny, Vanessa, is that the longer I stayed there, the more people started to come out of the
Right.
church of the church, and I'm like, how many of you are in there?
Right.
Because I had heard the rumors that these people are sleeping in the upstairs. It's like 30, 40 people that are sleeping in the upstairs, and if they're not asleep, they're in the call center like
Right.
16, 17, 18 hours a day.
Right.
And in a regular church. I mean, I don't know, around the clock, business hours, if that's that many people that is needed at a
Right.
regular church to be there at that time. It
What
just
day
it
and
just seemed
time were
odd.
you there? Sorry, Jeff.
This was probably before noon, 11ish, 11:30, 12 o'clock.
On a
It was
weekday?
just it was a weekday. Yeah,
Okay.
during the weekday I had the day off, so I just say, hey, I got time. Let me go down here and see what I can see. And yeah, it was like a random Tuesday.
Okay.
And these people were just, I mean, you can see them looking out the windows and they started coming out the side doors.
Yes.
Yeah, it started to get really odd. And as I was, getting ready to, pack up and finish my narration, in comes Brian. And then the video just completely takes off from there.
Before you get to Brian, we see Pastor Joseph. And to me, he doesn't even act like a pastor. He's just allowing all of this junk to happen.
He's Joseph Bush. He's a good talker, and that's what he does. He's David's mouthpiece for the most part. Back in the days, we would call people like that a floozy because he does anything and everything that David tells him to do, regardless of what it is, which is disappointing, from a man perspective.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, he allowed a lot of things to happen. He didn't bring anybody back in or tell them to say, hey, he's on the sidewalk. It's almost like he wanted the confrontation. He wanted the smoke, is what we call it now. Um, but I was there in a non-violent capacity. I was there just recording, minding my own business. I didn't intend on talking to anybody. But once they started talking to me, I started talking to them.
Good thing you got it all on video. Tell us about Brian.
Whew. Yeah,
That was intense.
Brian, you saw how close he got to me,
Oh, yeah.
right? Very close. Was there a time when I thought that, I would have to put my camera down and throw hands? Yes, because he really got that close to me. But I had to stay calm and keep my resolve. That was the most important thing. Because Brian really, really escalated the situation.
He did.
Um, he got really close to me. And Vanessa, I will tell you, you can look into someone's eyes and you can see what it's almost like I could see his soul. I can see what his intentions were. I can see what his goal was. His goal was for me to make one false step onto their
Yep.
property
That's right.
or onto him, and it would have been game on from that
That's
point.
right.
And I could see in his eyes that there was, I work in the public, so I see a lot of people all the time, and I I tend to think that I have a good sense of discernment. Brian was the kind of person that had been completely hypnotized by David E. Taylor. I mean, all the way in, he was saying things that were absolutely not true, that I had some type of restraining order and that I made threats. I've never made a threat to anyone in my life, but he's making these accusations of these threats, and it just, it escalated. I mean, to the point where it was really close. It was really close to us, to it becoming physical. And like you said, Joseph Bush is literally standing there
Right
watching
there.
it happen,
Yep.
watching it happen. And I think he wanted it to happen.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
That's my
so they
belief
can,
too.
yep, so they can have an excuse for something that, didn't even exist. There was no threat. I was no threat to these people at all. But
No,
it got pretty close to getting physical.
right. And there was several of them. And again, you're on the sidewalk
By
and
myself.
by yourself. And my husband was
Yeah.
watching it with me. And so he said, look at when he was talking about Brian, he goes, look, when Brian was standing on the grass, he goes, watch his eyes. He keeps on looking at the grass to see if you make one move onto
Hmm.
that grass, because that would have been his open door, so to speak. Because he mentioned stand your ground, which I think is hilarious because, and I probably didn't even share this with you, but I long story short, I used to teach on the laws about that long time ago. And people love to bring that, they stand your ground, stand your ground. They don't know what it means.
Yeah.
You weren't even, there was no imminent threat with you. You didn't
None.
say any, you didn't verbally suggest that you were going to do anything. You didn't make any movements that you were going to do anything. And he's talking about stand your ground. It would be you that would be able to assert that defense in the event that person attacked you, because you're in a place you have the right to be. You're not committing a crime. And if you are in reasonable fear of your life, against some type of force, either non-deadly or deadly, you can use certain force without retreating. That's the whole
Right.
concept of stand your ground. People don't realize that.
I was simply there recording
Right,
on a public sidewalk.
right.
And for some reason, I mean, maybe they didn't understand how, public photography or the freedom of the press works. Um, just because they maintain the sidewalk doesn't make it their property. It's still
Right.
public property, and so that's what I wanted to maintain the whole time that I was there. And I know he was trying to provoke me to make a move and do something, but I know that I was outnumbered, and I
Oh,
know
yeah.
that if I had made a wrong move and provoked them, th- I don't maybe I wouldn't be here right now. I don't know.
Right.
That's why, I try to stay reserved and stay calm. Um, did I ever think that, was I afraid? Fear as far as not for myself, but I'm a father.
Yes.
If something happens to me, what happens to my kids? If something happens to me, what happens to my wife?
Yeah.
That was my mindset. But as far as fear and having to get physical, that wasn't going to happen from my side at all. But if
Right.
I had to, Vanessa, I would have.
Right.
I'm
No,
glad
that
I didn't. I'm glad it didn't come to
no.
that.
And you handled it so well. You were so calm and cool, and you were just assertive, and I love that. And let's just talk about, at some point they called the police.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
Which
there's a man standing on public property. We don't like it. Police come. I mean, what did that call look like, you know?
you know what? The Taylor police and you and I talked last week, and you saw the video. I'm guessing you didn't know any of those two officers that
Oh,
showed up.
I did not. Right. Because
Okay,
I
all right.
left there 22 years ago from the PD's office. No,
Oh,
I didn't
okay,
see either one of those
okay,
police
okay.
officers. No.
Yeah, so the police did show up, Taylor police, and it's funny because they have a history with the Taylor police,
Yes.
and the Taylor police know that they have a history with JMMI, and this wasn't the first time that they've been to that organization for some sort of call. I mean, a rumor has it that they've been called there because someone was attacked in the call center at some point, and the police were called.
Wow.
Um, so this wasn't their first interaction with that organization, but they did show up. It was two cop cars that showed up, and they were very professional,
They
very
were.
professional. So kudos to the Taylor Police Department. I know they came under some scrutiny after everything that happened with David E. Taylor. Um, but kudos to them. They were very professional. The two officers that showed up showed me respect. Um, they didn't do anything to me because obviously I wasn't breaking the law. So it was so
Right.
you're not breaking the law. They didn't make me identify. I didn't have to. And there's no need for me. I wasn't breaking the law. I'm simply standing on the sidewalk recording. But the reaction afterwards with the JMMI staff, I don't know if you even paid attention to it, but when the police pulled off, Brian gave me one of those hand signals, like, you know,
Oh,
so
yeah.
what? You know what the hand signal was. It was a
Yep.
back and forth gesture that we won't even talk about. But listen, this is the kind of people um, that could easily turn violent over
Yes.
a situation that was simply someone exercising their First Amendment.
Yes.
And imagine, you know, with what's going on right now, and I'm sure we'll get into the whole trial and everything later. And like I explained to you, I hope this doesn't become violent, but just that display on the sidewalk with someone not doing anything, and what's going to be happening in this trial with him in prison, I just hope it doesn't turn
Right.
violent. And
That's
and,
a
and the
very,
language that was we haven't even talked about the language that
that
was
I was
used.
about to
Okay,
go
I'll
ahead.
let you go ahead. I'll let you go ahead and ask the question.
Well, there we go. Because this man, Brian, who's in your face, he actually called you the N word. And
And
I was watching.
if your viewers didn't know, Brian is a Caucasian male.
Right.
so,
Right.
so yeah, he more than one occasion called me the N word. And here's the thing. Here's the thing that some people know, some people might not know. I think that word is used in his organization over and over again between black, between white, because David says it. And if David says it, it's okay for everyone else to say. obviously it wasn't the N word with the hard er at the end. It
Right.
was more of the slang term. But even that coming from Brian, a Caucasian male, um, and you know what, Vanessa, the thing is, I don't even think he realized that he said it
It just,
because he probably says it so
right.
much, it just rolled off of his tongue
It
like he's
did.
talking to one of his homies at the
Right.
church.
And I told you this when we were watching, I was watching it with my husband and I'm just like taking notes. And my husband's the one that caught it. And he goes, "Did you hear him?" He just said, I go, "He did." And so he backs it because I didn't hear it at
Yeah,
first. I heard it the second time. I didn't hear it the first because it really was just like you said, it rolled off his tongue like he does that. And, people like Detroit is very, there it's so multicultural,
yeah,
and
yeah.
there's a heavy, heavy Middle Eastern influence there too. And I didn't tell you this, I'm actually half Chaldean. And so, and you're familiar with the Chaldeans, right? Because they're all over.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so,
And correct me if I'm wrong, um, but outside of the Middle East, Dearborn, Michigan is the highest
number one,
populated. Yeah. Yeah.
number one for Middle
Number
Eastern.
one. Yep. For Middle Eastern.
You
That's
can go, like,
amazing.
I used to have to, I turned out very white. Okay. I have family that are not, they're darker. But talking about, well, you can assume somebody. I try not to, especially in Detroit, because some Chaldeans are light skinned,
Yeah.
such as myself, but some are dark. And I have family members that were dark, and so you just don't know.
Yep.
But oh, matter of fact, just talking about when people don't know. This is fun fact. There are slang that people would say to me. My family, whatever. And this just happened recently where they use, the slang term Habib, to uh, describe somebody. And somebody that didn't know that I was Middle Eastern said that. And sometimes I'm like, they're like describing somebody, oh, he was like a Habib, da da da. And I was like, oh my gosh, people, I just stop with this racial slurs, just please. But I digress. But so this is what this guy, this clown did. And you just kept your cool in the midst of him saying that.
I think that he thought that that might have just taken me over the edge, because I repeated it. I said, "Did you just call me a?" He said, I don't know. Did I? I might have called you a. And then he says it again. So I was like, oh. And then at that point, I was like, oh, no, there's no way I'm turning this video off. I said, dude, you might have taken me to 100,000 views right there. We're standing out in front of a church, a Christian place where people are supposed to come and be in the presence of God. And I have been met with aggression, uh, and racial undertones,
Yes,
and
with
near
absolute hate.
violence
Yes,
and absolute hate.
absolute
And
hate.
you know what? It comes from the head, Vanessa. I could feel David E. Taylor in every person that spoke to me. And I've never met David Taylor before. Never seen him in person, but his spirit lingers through all of his people that are under him. They talk like him. They have his some of them even dress like him. I've seen Pastor Steve wear the exact same thing that David E. Taylor had on. It's just, and this is the definition, the very definition of a cult.
Yes,
There's no other way to describe it.
I know. I'm glad you just mentioned that because one of the young men who came out, do you remember he had like gold on his lapels on the jacket, just like a David E.
Yes, yes.
When I saw that, I was like, what is this? I mean, he was a young man.
Young,
Young.
young. Yes, yes. And the guy that came out later, Chris, he was young too. And I don't know what David said to these people, how he was able to do it. But I think when you have people that are desperate for God and desperate for his presence and his and the knowledge of God, your mind can be easily manipulated by the wrong people. and by the wrong person, by the wrong spirit. And I think that's what David has been successful with.
Yeah.
Because anybody in their right mind, I mean, it's not funny, but I'll say it anyway. It's not funny. The first time I saw this guy, I was like, anybody who believes him and believes that he's never had a hairpiece before, why in the world would you be would you believe that he's Jesus' best friend? He can't even tell you the truth about his hair. It just it's it's
Just tell the truth, folks. Just tell the truth. But that
yeah,
is a red flag, right?
it's a
All
red
of these
flag.
things. And you put them together and you're like, who's buying this? And that's what I've seen is the predominant when I see the comments on videos, it's predominantly people, either Christian or not, they're like, who is buying this? Who's really succumbing to who's believing this? It's
Yeah,
remarkable. But as you said early on, we're seeing a Jim Jones, David Koresh. This is the same type of mentality here. And in my opinion, the people that are still there, they are still working the call centers and they're still, they were there picketing in Detroit. They're going to see this through to the end, just like you said, and they're not going to be swayed. Well, at some point, as you said, they could be a victim or they're going to move into that category of an accomplice
right,
because
right.
their hearts are seared, their minds are seared. They will do anything for David Taylor, just like you said. And one of those, well, I think there were several emails that were part of the government's memo for detainment. And it talked about where he was saying this is war. And if the government comes in here, you know what to do. Well, didn't we see that with David Koresh? Was it David Koresh? Wasn't it?
Yeah, it was Koresh. It was
I mean,
Koresh.
yeah,
And Vanessa, I've watched. I'm embarrassed to say how many videos of David E. Taylor I've watched because I'm just intrigued by what can he say next that can top the last thing that he
right,
said. But one of the things I remember him saying in one of his, I don't even want to call them sermons or
right,
speeches. They're just rants.
right,
They're just rants to his congregation. One of the things I remember, he would beg for CNN and MSNBC or CBS or NBC to write up something about him or to, in his words, come and get me. And just the brash, just arrogance of him
wow,
and his followers, they cling on to that. Like,
right,
okay, our man of God is untouchable because he's Jesus's best friend. And they believe this, even to the point where they were raided by the FBI, taken away in vans, put in handcuffs, and you still believe that his intentions are good.
right,
I don't know. I don't know, Vanessa. That is the manipulation goes so deep.
yeah,
And I really feel for these people. I know we'll talk about it later, but
yeah,
my hope is that these victims find a way out and find what they're really looking for because I think they were what I would call spiritually vulnerable,
right,
and they just happened to run into David E. Taylor, and
yeah,
that's sad.
yep. And I want to segue now into that because you did take some action. Was it after your video or before with the protest that you were involved in?
Yeah, so this was I'm not gonna name drop, but he got into a relationship that turned sour. And
You're referring to David E. Taylor with,
yes,
okay,
yep,
but we all
yep.
know who it is. So,
All right, so yep, so Vicky Yohe, he got into that relationship with her, um, and I'll give you just a little bit of backstory on that too, Vanessa. Before Vicky, well, when she was joining and she became affiliated with David E. Taylor, I reached out to her through a direct message. And because I was deep into, like, what he was about, and I had already done the video that you see. And I reached out to her through a direct message and I was like, Vicky, listen, this man is not of God. This is a charlatan. He is a demon. He is not a good person. Um, he is a false fake apostle. There's nothing real about him. So please get out while you can. And she sent me messages back and said, "Oh, he sees Jesus and he's Jesus's best friend, and I believe him, and he's the savior, and he's the it just just the talk, the talk. She had already been bought in by it. And so what happened. She finally realized that what we were all trying to tell her was true. Because she, went on all these trips with this man, and he bought her Christian Louboutin shoes and bought her a Jaguar, and then he basically kicked her to the curb. Um, so of course, we felt bad for her, and at
But
that time,
that's when
it,
it clicked for her.
that's what
Conveniently clicked
that's
for her.
that's conveniently it clicked for her. Um, but she was able to organize a protest, getting all of us together, former members, people that were just involved in anti David E. Taylor. She got us all together. I'll give her that much credit. And it was probably a good 25 or 30 of us, um, that agreed to meet at a certain time in front of the church and protest. So we had signs made up and we showed up to the church. And you know what? I don't know who leaked it, who told them at JMMI that we were coming. But I tell you what, as soon as we stepped on that sidewalk, Vanessa, it's like it's like like Black Friday when they're waiting for the doors to open, and you see the people just like running into
Right.
the
Store.
mall, but these people were running out of the church to confront us. And I'm sure they didn't want to be violent, but the way they ran out of that church, all in one door, with their signs that saying, "Jesus saves," uh, and when we love Apostle, and all these other
They
things.
had signs ready.
They had signs ready. They had signs ready for us.
So
So
someone
somehow
leaked it.
someone leaked it that this was going to be happening because they had signs ready. Um, so imagine, we're sitting there. I think it's Superior Road in front of the church. A good 50, 55, 60 people, all different signs, and people are going up and down the street like they're reading this sign and under FBI investigation, and we love Apostle Taylor, and all these other signs that were out there. And we were on the main street, and we walked back to the church. So we were out there probably a good hour and a half before it died down and everyone went their separate ways. But that just it let us know that we know David, we know what's going on. And even Michelle pulled up in a Mercedes.
While you
she pu-
all were out
while
there.
we were there, yep, and she pointed right at me and says, "I know you." Because I had been like the original hater of David E. Taylor. Um, because
Really?
oh yeah, I would call the church, and if you've ever called their call center before, they don't hang up on you. They'll talk to you.
Yes, I experienced that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Even if you are against David E. Taylor and you're saying bad things about him, they'll keep you on the phone and talk to you
Right.
because that's just their spirit they want the confrontation. But that day, yeah, it was amazing. It was amazing. I was glad for us to get out there and really expose what was going on in this church. And I think it kicked off from there. And I think that's really when the attention started to focus on what is really going on at this place.
Right. Do you recall how many years ago that was with the protests?
What is this, 2025?
Yeah.
That had to be. I'm guessing. I'm totally guessing. It was before. I want to say it was before COVID.
Oh, okay.
So I'm thinking 2018,
Oh, wow.
2019. Right, right. Yeah, yeah. I think right around that time. Don't quote me on that though, but I think that's when it was.
And do you know if there, because there, sitting here right now, there are so many podcasts, YouTube channels that are devoted to exposing David Taylor. I wasn't aware of it until after I heard about the arrest. Were, were some of those in existence at that time? Do you know?
Some of the podcasters and
Right.
channels. Oh yeah, oh yeah. There was a couple that I can mention. Laura Pender, rest his soul. He came out with a channel, and he would just put some clips together of some of David's just
Rant.
bizarre, yeah, his rants and just bizarre messages. Um, and then there was the David E. Taylor Comedy Channel, which is still alive right now. So kudos to those people for keeping those channels alive and keeping the exposing going. But I will say this, and I hope he doesn't mind me name dropping him. I would be remiss. I would be remiss if I did not mention who I believe is the biggest contributor to where David is right now, and that's Rich Holmes. If you're not familiar with him, he has Full Frontal Investigation on YouTube. Me and Rich connected, many years ago, and we talked. But when after my, video went viral, it died down a little bit. Rich,
Oh,
that moment, and probably before that, he never let off the gas. I mean, this guy has dedicated so much time and effort and energy. I hope one day you get a chance to talk to him, Vanessa. He is he's a very passionate person. That's what I would tell you about Rich. I love the guy to death, man, because he's so passionate about what and he won't mind me saying this either. He's not a religious person. He will tell you that, to your face, that he's not a religious person. What he doesn't like is people being deceived by the word of God, and using God, Jesus, in ministry to to get all of this wealth, under the pretense that you're gonna prosper in this world because of what I've said to you. And if I just hope you get a chance to talk to him one day, because he's done the work. He's done the work. He has done so much, and dedicated so much of his time. And if he's listening right now, Rich, man, I love you, man. You're my brother. We're gonna get together in April and get to this trial, man. I cannot wait.
we're going to talk about that. You glitched for a minute. I don't know if it really did. It could have been on my side, but you were talking about Rich really going hard on the investigation, being diligent. I just want to make sure that that was covered when you're, just to reiterate. And my understanding is that he really is the one that kind of spearheaded that and just kept communicating with the FBI to
Yeah,
provide them information.
yeah, yeah. You talking about detailed work, Vanessa? I mean, he's filing all types of reports, filing all type of whatever for the I forget what it's called that the church has to have, um, for their ministry to run, but he's filing all sorts of reports with the FBI, with the state, making sure that the FBI knows that these people are defrauding, by possibly um, money laundering. He's done so much work. I can't say it enough how much I appreciate the work that he's done, and I'm sure many people appreciate the work that Rich has done.
It's really interesting that, and I don't know if you've seen this, but when I'm covering people that claim to be Christian leaders in these big ministries, they talk about us podcasters or whoever on social media and say that we're being divisive and that we're causing a division in the body of Christ, and or going to affect people coming to Christ. That's so far from the truth. It's just a lie. You've got somebody that's saying that I'm not a religious person, and they're seeing all this and they're doing all the work. This is what you have. This is the example of what you have, what you people are doing and allowing. Because if somebody who was a Christian leader stepped in and said, David E. Taylor, this is not cool, we got to shut this down or do whatever, then you wouldn't need all these other people to come alongside and do the work, right? And you've got I'm sure there are people who are not Christians that are put off because of people like David Taylor. And it's you guys. It's the ones that claim to be the leaders. You're the ones that are being divisive. You're the ones that are putting an obstacle in front of people that could potentially come to Christ because they're seeing this absolute circus and they're going to be put off from coming to Jesus because this is what they think the church is.
Or yeah, and you're absolutely right, Vanessa. Or you can have people that are Christians that are now being driven away from God or driven away from the church because of this. I mean,
Right.
you can get a whiff of this stuff, man, and people can just be like, "Wow, that's what's going on in the church right now." And then, this is we don't have enough time to talk about this, Vanessa. But then you talk about the church and state and how those two just they're always in this battle. Um, and it's unfortunate because these people are blatantly scamming people and
Yep,
getting money. And like you said, the call center is still open.
it is.
This place is still this church is still open. At what time is it? They're probably about to have a service at 10 o'clock. That's going to
Right.
go live, and they're still going to be asking for donations, and they're still going to be playing old clips of David E. Taylor while he's sitting in prison. And I was talking to one of my friends the other day about this, and I was explaining to him what was happening, and he was like, I can't believe this is true. And I
Yeah.
was like, no, we have a person that is involved in slave labor, potentially sex slave trafficking. But then he'll get on one of his broadcasts and say the money that we're gathering and that we're collecting is to help sex slave trafficking.
Right. Right.
Like the oxymoron that is
Yes.
David E. Taylor. It's amazing. This entire thing is just amazing to me in the
It,
in the worst way possible.
I know. It's hard to wrap your head around it. I'm glad you brought that up because on my channel, I mean, we can go back like 3, 4 months ago, but I talked about that because, and you probably, do you know who Mercy Culture is?
I've heard
There.
of it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So I did a video. It was about Dr. Michael Brown. It was a
Mm.
four-part series. It was exhausting for me because the person I was talking about, Heather Shot, she physically makes me ill. Like I physically feel nauseous when I'm watching her. It's just nasty. So she um, stuck up stood up for or took up for Michael Brown, who was found after an investigation to have done these immoral things, right? But then they reinstated him. And so she claims to have in their church a center to help victims of human trafficking. And right away, I'm like, oh my gosh, you cannot have people there when you are siding with somebody who's immoral, who's done these
Right.
things that are abusive. Please steer away from that.
It
And
makes no
any
sense.
of these places, because, you know, and people don't realize it, that could be a front. We're
Hmm.
saying, just like you said with the David Taylor, that's a front saying that, this is my opinion, that this is what we're doing with the money. And then you've just been federally indicted for doing exactly what you said that you're trying to combat.
It's incredible. It's
Incredible.
incredible. Incredible.
Yeah. I don't want to take that much of your time. I want to close out, but I want to talk about the upcoming trial. So you're in the
Okay.
Detroit metro area. So are your plans to go and watch?
I talked to Rich, and I even invited him to stay with me during the trial if he wanted to. Um, I owe him that much. But yes, I plan on being at the trial. I'm going to use my PTO that I have, and I have to be there for it because I think this trial um, is unprecedented. It's going to be historic.
Yeah,
I don't think the United States has seen anything quite like they're going to see in this trial. And
right.
I think there's going to be a lot more things uncovered um, before then. But yes, I do plan on being there. And like you said, I hope they have an overflow downtown for this trial because there's going to his people are coming.
Right?
His people are going to be there. So will we be able to get in the courtroom? I'm not one of those ones that's going to, stand in line at 10 o'clock at night and hope to get in the morning.
Right.
I'm not that vested in it, but I do want to be there um, um, to see this and hear all of the things that are going to be going on in this trial. I actually had a question for you too, Vanessa, since,
Mhm.
you're a lawyer and we talked about this. What obstacles do you think the prosecution will have in this trial?
That's a great question. So this is not a slam dunk, as people might think. It's just not. You've got a group of people that are comprising the victims, and there's 8 of them. And then you're going to have the witnesses that will be able to corroborate and talk about their experiences that support the elements of the crimes charged, right? And you have to remember what he's been charged with is forced labor, slave labor, conspiracy to commit forced labor, and conspiracy to commit money laundering. It's those 3 charges. I see a lot of people talking about other charges that they've added. That's not correct. Those are the 3. Okay. If you watched or watched any videos that talked about this, or actually listened to the recordings from the detainment hearings, because there was 2. There was one for Michelle, there was one for David. For Michelle, I remember that attorney making an argument that seemed to be contradictory. On the one hand, he claimed that Michelle was a victim, but then on the other hand, at the other side of his mouth, said that these texts are out of context, that these things didn't happen. Well, then let's go back to what you're saying. You're saying that your client was a victim. A victim of what? Because the texts describe the crimes, right? What was going
Hmm.
on. The text describe it. So that was interesting. But he did say something that was interesting and of note, that he looked forward to this trial because he has a bunch of witnesses who are going to testify to exactly the opposite. So it's going to be a credibility issue. All right. So that's number 1, right? It's he said, she said. If you've heard that before, if you watch any court TV or any commentators in law, it's he said, she said, right?
Right.
And it's the jury that determines whose testimony or parts of testimony they're going to believe. It's up to them. It's not up to the judge. It's up to the jury. They're the fact finders. Judge is essentially a referee. All right. The other thing is, because I play devil's advocate, I'm an attorney, I've been practicing, and
Can
I've
I
done,
guess at what you're going to say?
yes.
Because and if I'm wrong, that's okay. But I think the freedom of religion will also play a role in this as well. Maybe that's not the direction you were going, but what do you think about that?
100%. That is going to be, that's going to be part of the argument there too. Because remember, they have to deflect, and so there's going to be that what he did was he had these people that were there voluntarily, and
Right.
this is all about and protected under freedom of religion. 100%. I
Okay.
was going to get there last, but thank you for bringing
Okay.
that in. The last point is, and I told you I wasn't going to share, but I think it's fair because, let's just let everybody know this has been my thought process from the beginning. I believe that the defense will focus on people that have channels, that had channels before David Taylor was ever arrested. He's going to focus on them and try to make them the scapegoat and try to, because we've already seen it happen, right? We've seen that happen where David Taylor's attorney alleged that a gentleman was racist because remember,
Yes.
which was the whole thing with the
Yes.
with the deposition, saying that this man was racist because that man had an issue with his estranged wife, ex-wife. They were going through that
Right.
divorce, giving David Taylor $1 million.
$1 million. I'd be pissed too. Sorry. Sorry.
No, you can say that. That's fine. I would be very, very angry. I would be pissed too. So that was the basis of David Taylor being questioned in a deposition. People seem to think that he was being investigated. It wasn't. It was they were allowed to. He wasn't. David Taylor was not a party to that action. But getting back to what I'm saying, I believe that the defense will use that and try to kind of scapegoat or try to put the focus on people that are, they're just out to get David Taylor. They don't like him. Maybe they're a race, whatever they're going to use. That's what they're going to focus on as well. Does that make sense?
It
That's my
does.
thought
It
process.
does. And that is yeah. And you are a former prosecutor. So you can, your word is, I totally believe that they can go in that direction. And it's not a slam dunk case. Again, I think the freedom of religion is going to play a big part in this because, like you said, these people are freely practicing the religion that they believe in. And David Taylor is going to persuade his lawyer, which you could already hear in the detention hearing, that David has persuaded his lawyer that these are biblical terms that he's practicing.
Right.
These are biblical terms, and these are
With
these
the
are
tithe. Yes.
biblical laws and he's simply going by the Bible. Especially if you don't work, you don't eat.
Oh,
and you
right. Yes.
and we've heard that in the text messages.
Yes.
And I hate when people say, "Oh, you've taken it out of context." No, those texts are they're in black and white. They
Right.
are what they are.
They are.
Wake them up. Throw water in their face. We're gonna mess with the food. They're on a PB&J a diet or ration and until they get to these certain numbers.
Right.
This is not normal behavior,
Right.
not even in the workplace, and especially in church. It's just not
No.
normal.
And it's not biblically based. It's not biblically backed. They can argue that, but then you have to decide, is this a false doctrine that they're preaching? So, yeah, I mean, I 100% I believe they're going to do that. We actually see that as well in other cases, but there's a civil case, and I don't know if you're watching the Robert Morris um,
No, not.
that coverage at all. Okay, but I do talk about it in that as well because there's a civil lawsuit against him and his old church because they said if you're not happy with the tithes that you gave, you can get your money back. But then when they asked for the money back, they wouldn't give it to them. And the pleadings on that, meaning the filings, the papers that are filed by the attorneys on behalf of the defendants, they're asserting just that. It's a religious act. You can't get the court involved in this, just like you said,
Right,
that tension
right,
between state and church. And that is what they're defending it on. But here, whether this was a church or not, they claim to be. We have examples of other groups like Keith Raniere. That wasn't a religious that I know of. It was spiritually based, but he was found to have been a cult leader. He's in prison. Um, Very similar tactics where you come in and they love bomb you
hmm
and they groom you and they just get you in and elevate him. Ooh, in Keith Raniere's situation, ooh, the master, I forget what they call him. He wants to talk to you. And here with David Taylor, people talk about being flooded by, his staff, and then he's allegedly sharing a prophetic word. It's just recorded. And my understanding is that it would be given to multiple people just to, oh, he
yeah,
pointed you out. He pointed
yeah,
you out.
yeah.
And this, and that's what they do to draw you in and to make you
All
feel
lies,
special.
all lies.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And to
sad,
get that money.
sad.
So any last thoughts? Like for you, like you're watching or are you engaging in any other way in regard to this criminal organization?
So as I shared with you last week, I was just out to the Taylor address a few weeks ago. I had some time. I was working out in that area. I said, you know what? Let me just stop by. It's about probably a month and a couple weeks after his arrest. I'm just gonna go by here and see if there's anybody, still here. Even though I know they do, live streams and they still have the call center going. I said, I'm just gonna drive by and see, what I can see. And to my surprise, I park my car and I get out, do the same thing I did before, get my camera, and I'm on the sidewalk. And Vanessa, I see like six Mercedes Benzes parked outside of the church. And if you followed the FBI raids, these were the vehicles that were at I believe, the Tampa
Yes.
mansion.
With the bows
And
on
somehow,
top?
yeah, Yeah, with the bows on the top. So somehow they have been transported back to Michigan, and I'm sure the FBI is aware of what's going on, with those vehicles. Um, my guess is that soon enough, there's going to be some things that are going to be repossessed, or the FBI is going to take custody of, leading up to this trial. I could also see that, with the FBI raid, that they went through that side door with some type of battering ram, because it's only like a 2x4, or uh, car wood up right now for the door. I said,
Oh,
wow. Listen, yeah, they kicked that door in. Uh, so, and there were still people there. I saw, and I don't care about dropping these names. I definitely saw Eli there. Uh, Tony, who never has anything fixed, was there. He,
fix
he
it, Tony.
fix it,
Fix
Tony.
it.
Tony, you got to fix this. So he came out. Pastor Steve was on the other side of the church, just walk. I'll send you the video after this. Just
Okay.
walking up and down because he knew I was there. So he's just walking up and down the grass, just not doing anything. And then he sees me, locks eyes with me, starts walking towards me, and then he walks back into the church. And then I get in my car, and Tony runs out the side door with his camera, like, I guess videotaping my life. It's just, it's just bizarre. The whole thing is bizarre,
Yeah.
and I think it's going to get even more bizarre as we lead up to this trial. And again, and I know we're wrapping up, but my hope, Vanessa, is that this doesn't turn violent. That these people get the necessary help that they need, even though they don't believe that they need it. I hope they find an avenue that leads them from under David E. Taylor, and that they can see without that veil over their face or over their eyes who he truly is.
Right.
That's my hope, that, and I
Yeah.
think with us doing this today, other podcasters, and people just exposing what's going on. I mean, I hate to say it this way, but who knows who's going to watch this, and we could be saving lives. And
That's
I hope
right.
and I hope that's what we're doing. I hope that's what we're doing today.
Me too. I love that, Jeff. That was great. And I so appreciate you coming on here and sharing. And I'm so glad that I met you. And please keep in touch. We'll keep in touch.
Likewise,
And I
likewise.
know that you want to spend time with your lovely family. That's a new word, family today. And you're going to be watching the game today, right?
Absolutely. Just in a few hours.
Okay. I'll let you go. Again, thank you so much for taking the time this morning to spend with me. And I will see you later, Jeff.
It was a pleasure, Vanessa. Let's stay in touch.
Absolutely.
All
Bye.
right.
Well, that was a great video. I thought a great interview. Jeff had a lot to share. He has been on David E. Taylor's tail, so to speak, for years. And I'm going to just link his video there that I referenced in the description box so that you can click on that. And it really did go viral. And it's very interesting how, these people that claim to be lovers of God, how they treat people, and they just don't want the focus on them. They don't want to be exposed. But here we are. It's exposure time, and it's not going to go away. And I hope that this blesses somebody, even if it's just one person. I say that, even if it's just one person that this spoke to through Jeff, I hope that it does. And I ask you all also, as it's 6 months out from trial. So if you can pray that there is no violence, no clashes of violence, that justice would be served. And stay tuned, because I will be talking about this as we get closer to the trial, just like I did with Tom Cassie, and we're two weeks out. So I look forward to your comments, and if this blessed you, let us know. I'll see you in the next video.